Okay. Geez, that was tough. I don't know if people here use YouTube Live, but I set this up a couple days ago on my phone, and now I want to use it on my desktop, and there's no way to change it. Oh well. Uh, so let's start from the beginning. It's been 14 books, more characters than I can remember, and 4.29 million words. And I finally reached the Wheel of Time about 2 weeks ago. And as I went through it, the main thing I kept thinking about was that the slog was the worst part. Book 7 to 10, if you don't know. And after I finished the book, I kept thinking about how that section of the series, I think, actually became the emotional core for the whole series. I'm going to talk more about it a little bit later, but I want you to know that over the past few days, with the help of AI, I had some fun. I created a few slides and some notes to help me gather my thoughts and share them with you in this video. I'll talk about what I liked. I talk about what I disliked. I'll talk a little bit about my thoughts on the slog, not what happened in the slog in general. Well, maybe in general, but not in detail. And finally, I'll talk about what stuck with me from this immense, epic, and most expansive series I've read. Warning, spoilers ahead. So let's start with slide 1. And my intent is to make this about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll see if we can stick to the time limit. But first and foremost, as I finished the last few pages of the Wheel of Time, it felt like an emotional roller coaster, tsunami, earthquake, whatever you want to call it. It was intense. In the last half of the last book, as I went through character by character and just read through what they went through, I mean, it was nearly tear jerking each time, and I found that extraordinary. Once I put the book, well, what you'll find is it was an audiobook, but once I put the series down, I have had a reading hangover like I had never had before. It had taken me about a year to get through the books. So about a year of my life was dedicated to getting through it, finishing it, getting to the next book. And when it was done, the journey was over. It seemed like a real loss. And I struggled to find something that kept my attention because I kept coming back to the thoughts of the characters and the plot that was the Wheel of Time. So a week after, I couldn't keep my attention on podcasts. I couldn't keep my attention on other books I was trying to read that were on my TBR. I could listen to music in the background while I was driving or while I was working, but not a single thing, not even news, held my attention. And those are things I try to use while I'm, doing chores or driving or what have you. Today, for the rest of the slides that I have here, my hope is to offer some reflection so that other readers who feel like I do have somewhere to kind of gather their thoughts, to just listen in and kind of, it's almost like struggling with a loss. It's something like I've never experienced before. So let's go to the second slide here. Let me see if I can click through. So the big thing that was left with me is that the slog was such a struggle. There were so many times it tested my patience, my endurance, and there were times where I didn't want to keep going. I put the book down. I did other things. There were weeks that went by that I didn't pick it back up. It truly tested my desire to keep going. And what I found was absolute frustration with the plot. There were over 2,000 pages in those books 7 to 10. And, what did we learn from there? In A Crown of Swords, you start to see the collapse of some of the alliances that Rand put together. Path of Daggers, you can see Rand start going more and more crazy. And with Winter's Heart, there was a really amazing part, if I'm not mistaken, at the end where him and Nynaeve, again, spoiler warnings, him and Nynaeve cleanse saidin, which was really cool. So a really cool part, and that's where things start to turn. But did that require 2,000 pages? At the time, I didn't think so. But looking back on it now, and I want to make sure that you guys, yeah, it looks like my microphone's working. I just wanted to make sure. I started to think that the author did this on purpose. I think what he was doing was, one, providing a lot of exposition, but it puts the reader through so many trials and tribulations of your own, and it makes you struggle with the idea of going on, which a lot of these characters may be feeling and thinking themselves. You're right there with them. Do I keep reading? Do I keep listening? You have a part to play in this too, as small as it is, but the struggle's real. The struggle was real, and I think getting over the hump, and almost like a marathon runner goes through that, that 1 mile that almost breaks them, and then they get over that hump, and then they can see the finish line. I think that is a critical part. It almost, I think it might have been intended. So it really made me think, wow, I struggled, and I got through it, albeit I skipped chapter 2. And at least one of these books, I had to go back to YouTube and look at YouTube reviews and walkthroughs of one of the books to make sure I didn't miss anything, because it really was, 3 and almost 3.5 books, in my opinion, that were so tough to get through. So I hope you like this picture of Rodion. I know there's a black box at the bottom right. I didn't intend to show, my camera today. So let's take a look at the next slide. This is the Tower of Genji. And what we're looking at now is Matt's trek there. Hold on one second as I gather notes. I did talk a little bit about how I processed the ending. There were some great scenes. There were some scenes that I thought, what's the point? There's 14 books. There's 4 million words. Did we need all of this? Did we need this backstory? Could this have been condensed? I'm guessing it probably could have been condensed by a lot. The book I'm reading now, which I'll reference at the end of this live, Red Rising, as I'm going through it, I'm like, wait, what's going on here? We barely met these people and they're acting like they know each other. I'm missing a whole host of exposition because I'm so used to Robert Jordan and in the end, Brandon Sanderson really filling out that each character with exposition. So it kind of changed the mold for me. I'm sure I'll get back into it. That, 1 book, 2 book, or 3 book series, the one off. But for now, I just feel like I'm flying through this next book. I don't really know the characters. So there's that. Let's see here. That's all I wanted to spend on this part. Before I get to, my favorite characters, there were a few things I wanted to say that I really wanted to fill out the idea of the path less loved, and AI. It was a struggle this week getting um, these PowerPoint slides or these pictures together. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It took me several hours to get them all worked out. So if we see a slide named "The Paths Less Traveled," I don't think it's here, but if we do, um, we'll deal with it when we get there. There was a lot of wasted time searching for Fail, in my opinion. That story dragged on, and it actually goes into another point I have here. The Prophet Masima's storyline. What happened? Well, where did that go? It was a loose end that was tied up, but I don't know why that was introduced. I don't know why we had a few books that went through it. I found it unrewarding. I think there was a lot of politicking and tea drinking with the Aes Sedai, and I found myself going into the chapters where we were at the White Tower, like we are in this specific slide, and I kind of cringed. I wanted to be out there with Rand. I wanted to be out there with Matt. I wanted to be out there with Perrin and everyone in between, anyone in his circle. But when it came to Aes Sedai chapters and they sat down to talk, it was really tough to get through. One other thing I thought I could do with less of was this overarching theme of like, women talking about men and how wool-headed they are, and men talking about women and how hard, Aes Sedais do this, Aes Sedais do that, and no one can trust an Aes Sedai. I can almost understand that, but for Nynaeve specifically, her views on men, it came down to she was bickering, she was complaining, and it really slowed the pace of the book. Not worth in my opinion, not worth my time. So as we get to the favorite characters who shaped the journey for me, all the big names are here: Rand, Matt, Perrin. I'll go into the rest, but for each of them, I chose a specific part of the series that I thought was amazing. For Rand, it wasn't necessarily the end; it was actually him choosing the light at Dragonmount. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. It was intense. It was amazing, and for me, it was a very pivotal part of the book. With Matt, his Tower of Genji moments, not the first one, but the second one, where he was with Tom and Jane Farstrider. I thought it was epic, and that ending, the way he got out, was intense. I felt a sense of loss at the end of that that part of the story, and I thought it was clever. For Perrin, nothing really specific, but his mastering of the wolf dream. And, now that I think about it, maybe that one part where he encounters Egwene in the wolf dream and, he stops like, the balefire from hitting them. And she's like, what the heck? How did you do that? And he's like, oh, it's easy. Just tell it's not working or it's not there. That was excellent too. I thought that was amazing. Um, for some of the, you know, the scenes with some of the Forsaken, Moradin and Shamael was excellent. The Duel of the Wills was incredible. Although what I would say is Moradin didn't spend that much time as part of the Duel of the Wills and Shale Ghul. So for that part, he wasn't that great. He was a very big influence at the beginning. Played some small parts towards the end, but I thought he was a really interesting character. I'm back and forth about Demon Dread. I did put him in the notes, but I think I will skip. He was an interesting character, but now that I think about it, he's not a favorite. I did like Brigitte Silverblow. My favorite scene with her is towards the end when she saves Elaine's life. You think she's gone. The next thing you know, there's an arrow through a dark friend's neck. That's another part that gave me chills. That's definitely another part that gave me chills. Another character that I grew to be my favorite was Cat Swain. Anytime she interacted with Rand and really put him in his place, I thought that showed a lot of strength and a lot of bravery, in fact, especially when he wasn't himself. So kudos to Cat Swain for what she did. She was a very important part. The next character was Tam Althor. I really didn't think much of him at the beginning of the books. I didn't think much of him when he was helping out during the wars. But things started to turn when he met Rand. And Rand wasn't expecting to see him as actually a plot from Cadsuane. And that scene was epic. But the most epic scene between for Tam, in my opinion, was towards the end, where him and his son have their sword fight, and he teaches him one last lesson: to let it go and to trust in his instincts and to stop trying to control things so much. And it really made, I think, a big difference in the book. Great scene. The only other thing I'll say, I had Tom Marilyn in there. I'm going to skip him, but Moraine. You kind of almost saw it coming when we start to get some notes passed back and forth from Matt. They're going to go save that. She's going to be a pivotal part, and she'll probably tie off a lot of loose ends and make things nice and neat. And we did see that. It almost felt forced when she was helping Rand sign contracts with, all the different important players in the world. So let's stop there and go to the next slide. I did want to talk a little bit about the audiobook. I am an audiobook reader. That's my preference when it comes to listening to these stories. And I found the two original readers to be great, but I did want to make sure that I mentioned that I thought that Rosamund Pike's version of the first three books were impressive, to say the least. She was magnificent. I haven't seen much on the internet about her progress, but I hope that I'm able to read the rest of these books with Moraine telling them. She's got a long way to go, but when I hit my reread, I want to be able to read all 14 books over again with Rosamund Pike at the helm. Just my opinion. She's amazing. So let's go to the next one. Oop. Come on. go. Now we're at Dragon Mount. We did go over the scenes that stayed with me. Hold on one second. This was part. I'm gonna have to, when I go back, I'm gonna have to edit this video. But the scenes that stayed with me, we already discussed. And for my next set of videos, I'm gonna have to work a lot harder with AI on these. We did talk about the paths less loved, and this is the slide that should have come in second or third. One thing I wanted to end on is this left a huge wake in my reading journey this year. And I struggled with how to go on to the point where I actually did some research. I used AI and asked them, I told them what are some good stories out there that I could kind of get myself into to get over this. So there's a few up here. I've already read the Stormlight Archive, excellent series. I started the Malazan, the Book of the Fallen. I'm like a quarter of the way through the first book. It seems pretty good, but I wasn't ready for another 10 to 14 book series. I do not know Sorrow and Thorn. I've heard great things about Realm of the Elderlings. I've read Dune multiple times, but the one that isn't on this list that I actually started listening to over the past week was Red Rising. And it is a graphic audiobook, if I'm not mistaken. And the way they go about it is it's almost like a play or a movie that you listen to. And I hadn't experienced that before. And it got me over the hump. I am 100% on board with this book now. They call it graphic audio. I am looking for more books like this because it really holds my attention and it really gets me through some of the tougher scenes, the more boring, mundane scenes. But I am very much looking forward to sharing my thoughts on Red Rising, the first book. I can't get enough of it right now. And my hope is in the next week and a half, I'll have fewer slides, but I'll have a really well thought out review of Red Rising. So, I learned a lot from today's live. I hope you enjoyed some of my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be kind. This was my first go around, but I had a really good time putting these slides together. It really was cathartic for me to get them done and to get my thoughts on paper and then to share them here. So I hope you got something out of this, and I know I'll go back and I'll probably listen to this 1 or 2 times. I may edit the end out, but I also may keep it so I can learn from it. I hope to see you in the next one. And yeah, good luck on your reading journey.